Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How is everyone? Subhanallah, we haven't had for a week now, actually. We haven't had a live. So here I am back again. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Let me just make sure that everything is off because I do have my YouTube in the one hand and Instagram in the other hand. So we are live on YouTube, English, Dr. Steph Carries, as well as on Instagram. So the ones on Instagram, please move over to YouTube. Please, the ones on Instagram, move over to YouTube. It's going to be very important. I find it extremely important that we got to gather you over to YouTube because it's going to be more important there, more significant for us to actually have the live show there soon. We will actually stop Instagram simply because I think the medium of YouTube is much better to do something like that and much more efficient. And it's better for you also to write your comments and to ask questions. So here we are again, mashallah, alhamdulillah, after a week of a break. As I said before, I was in Cologne, I was in Germany. I had the chance to actually meet some Muslim entrepreneurs in Germany, and it was amazing. Alhamdulillah, I totally enjoyed it. Back again, okay, back again in the UK, and back again on the live show. Don't forget, for the ones who do speak German, come on Sunday to the German live, inshallah. Today is English, and walaikum salam, thank you, Baran. Yeah, and we will, inshallah, discuss a very important topic, something that had gone under in the last decade simply because this country we're going to discuss today was a country which belonged to the former Eastern Bloc countries, the communist countries, socialist communist countries that were under influence of the Soviet Union at that time, that were following communist ideals. And in the end, this country broke up and has become now 7 countries. Okay? Now, 6, the 7th has not been recognized by the whole world. Just a riddle, maybe you know what I'm talking about, even for the ones who maybe have not seen the cover or don't know the topic of today. I think it's going to be very interesting to discuss this issue, inshallah, today. Now, the country of Yugoslavia. Okay? For the ones who do not know what it is, if you take a look at the continent of Europe, if you take a look at southeastern Europe, you will find Greece, of course, all the way in the southeast, all the way in the south, actually, Mediterranean Sea. Greece with its many islands. Above Greece, you have basically in the north or northwest of Greece, you have Albania. Okay, in the west of Greece, Italy. Then basically in the east of Italy, Albania. Then next to Albania, that's when the country of Yugoslavia actually started. Okay, the country of Yugoslavia started in the north of Greece, all the way to the borders of Hungary, of Austria. Countries such as Slovenia, which have developed from that time. Okay, you have Slovenia, then you have Croatia, you have Bosnia and Herzegovina, you have North Macedonia, you have which one did I forget? Kosovo definitely is the 7th and last one, the one that actually has not been recognized by most countries, has been recognized by most of the countries in the world. Some of the countries have not recognized the Republic of Kosovo. An interesting country simply because we have seen that with the breakup of Yugoslavia, something very exciting and new happened. Okay? What happened? A country broke up. It got into several countries that came out of there, got into war, such as Bosnia, for example. And something that we never knew before, we didn't know enough. It was not something, it was not an issue, it was not a topic that was discussed, that there were and are Muslims in Yugoslavia, the territory of former Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia had a very big amount of Muslims, mainly in what is nowadays the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina, more than 62, 63% Muslims. The country of Kosovo, the Republic of Kosovo, again, as I said, not recognized by everyone, but more than 95, 96% Muslims. This is a massive amount. Basically, the entire country, mainly Albanian Muslims. And then we have smaller pockets of Muslims, especially in North Macedonia, the west of North Macedonia, which is entirely Albanian. Again, Muslims, a third of North Macedonia is actually Albanian Muslims. And then some smaller pockets in Montenegro, some smaller pockets in Croatia, some smaller pockets here and there. Okay, in Serbia, of course, in the south of Serbia, we have the province of Serbia, which is Novi Pazar is the capital down there. The province of Sanjak province in the south of Serbia, and you see clearly that over there, the people who live there are again Muslims, Sunni Muslims, the massive majority. Okay. Now let me just see. I do not see. Let me just make sure. Okay. Now, just give me a second. Let me just make sure that everything here is. I think there was a problem on Instagram. So basically, YouTube is working, Instagram not really. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I still have the chance to look actually to the other screen and take a look at your comments or your questions that you might have. Okay, Instagram doesn't seemingly work today. It was working, but at this moment I am not in Instagram anymore. I can't see it anymore. So we'll have to work with what we have to work, what we can work, which is YouTube at the moment. So inshallah, again, feel free to just ask your questions, see what you can actually remember of the country of Yugoslavia. If I ask you simply some keywords that come to your mind if you hear Yugoslavia, what goes through your brains? What can you imagine? What do you remember? What do you know of Yugoslavia? Maybe you can write it in the chat, especially in YouTube, please. You can write them in the chat and just let me know what rings the bell. What keywords can you remember or can you imagine are part of or were part of Yugoslavia? Let's see. War. Excellent. Yeah. War is one. War. Anything else? Any other idea? It's a very sad and negative term, obviously, that we have to think of. I mean, is there anything positive, maybe? War, definitely, it's something that we have mentioned already, of course. And we will, of course, have to go into the issue of the Bosnian War, and not only the wars that happened also between Croats and Serbs and in Croatia, not in Slovenia. Okay, Slovenia, not a lot happened there. They became basically peaceful, independent. North Macedonia, the problem again with the Albanian minority, who have come to the point that basically now Albanian is recognized in North Macedonia as a language which is officially part of North Macedonia. Now, with regards to Kosovo, there is still a problem. Kosovo is still a problem. Okay, Serbia had closed the borders. At this moment, I think they're still closed. I remember last time when I was there, I arrived in Kosovo, okay, at the airport in Pristina, and I could not go over the border to go to Novi Pazar, to go to Sanjak, which is in Serbia, the Sanjak province. I could not do it at that time because they closed it down. So unfortunately, the issue of the Balkans being the Balkans still there, as we know it, is still a problem. It's definitely there, Yes, I don't see any other responses to the idea of keywords that you remember, that you might think of when you think of Balkans or Bosnia, sorry, of Yugoslavia specifically. Okay, but let's go with war. Obviously, what we just mentioned, Bosnia and Herzegovina, a war, a massive war between 1992 and 1995. And I want you to, for the ones who are old enough to remember, okay, I want you to remember that this war between 1992 and 1995 gave Bosnia, Muslim Bosnia, its independence, got many Muslims in Bosnia to go back to their Islamic roots, to understand Islam, because during the time of communism, during the time of the Socialist Republic, basically, of Bosnia being part of Yugoslavia, they were not considered at all. Okay? They were just part of Yugoslavia. Not even the language Bosnian, which is the same. Let's be honest here. The Yugoslavian language was called Serbo-Croatian. It was Serbian, Croatian, and Bosnian. These are three the same languages basically, but because of the ethnic divisions, they have taken the names of the ethnicities of the people who actually speak these languages. So yes, we have Serbians speaking Serbs, Serbs speaking Serbian, Croats speaking Croatian, and Bosnians speaking Bosnian, which in the end is actually all one language. But when they refer to the language of Yugoslavia, they called it Serbo-Croatian. Bosnian got totally lost. The identity of the Bosnians was totally lost. Okay. Another keyword, Ottomans. MashaAllah. Thank you very, very much. Absolutely right. Absolutely correct. MashaAllah. You're absolutely right. Ottomans, very important, and we have to go back to that, because if you need to find out why is Islam in Bosnia, why is Islam in the Balkans, what is the type of Islam that is practiced in the Balkans, and why is it Sunnis mainly? Because of the Ottomans, mashallah. Okay, and not only, and I will come back to that point, the Ottomans were the ones who stabilized Islam in the Balkans, without a doubt. The Ottomans are the ones who actually strengthened Islam and Islamic presence. But before the Ottomans arrived in the 14th century, already in the 13th century, a century before, we had Muslims coming from the Kumans, from the Kupchaks, from these different people who were Muslims already from that time, and they came and established also mosques there. And there is one ruin, for example, which is a mosque, an old mosque in the south of Kosovo, okay, in Mlike. There is a masjid which comes which dates back to the 13th century, so a century before the Ottomans even arrived in that part of the world. Okay, and that was built by Muslims coming from other parts of the world. And this is something people aren't aware of. Turkish Europeans, or what does it say? Turkish, yes, Europeans, right? Mashallah, that's very, very important actually to see that Turkey, despite it being just 5% of the entire country, a part of Europe, these 5% still makes it a European country. So Turkey is without a doubt a European country, okay, and has to definitely be considered as part of Europe. Yeah. So the Ottoman, Turkish, Muslim roots of the Balkans, especially countries such as Bosnia and Herzegovina, countries such as Albania, countries such as Kosovo, such as North Macedonia, which have either a majority Muslim or a very large minority Muslim population, mainly connected to the Ottoman past. Now, we do have two main peoples who in the Balkans, actually three main peoples who in the Balkans confess who are Muslims. Okay, first and outmost, the biggest ones, obviously the biggest population, which have become minorities now as small pockets throughout what was the territory of Yugoslavia, of previous Yugoslavia. These are the Turks and the Turkish speakers. Okay, they of course, without a doubt, these people have their roots. They go back to the Ottoman Empire, of course. They play a massive role still nowadays because the Turkish language plays a very important role, and not only Turkish vocabulary that is part of, let's say, Bosnian or Albanian or other languages, Muslim languages, But the Turkish culture and civilization and language plays in itself a role, because there are Turkish pockets and Turkish speaking pockets throughout the Balkans. You will find Turkish speakers in Greece, for example. Greece, in the north of Greece, in what is called Thrace nowadays, in that part, they even teach Turkish at the Muslim schools. Okay, they're called Muslim schools, but mainly it has to do with the Muslim speaking, mainly Turkish. Okay, um, so the importance of the Turkish speakers and the Turks, okay, uh, they they play a role throughout the Balkans. But Yugoslavia, of course, you will find still pockets of some Turkish speakers and Turks. Now, second, Albanians. Albanians are neither Turks, nor Greeks, nor Slavs, nor anything else. They are Albanians. And it is very difficult in terms of linguistics. For example, they say Albanian is a language which is just, it falls out of the European family. It is part of the Indo-European family, but it falls out of, you know, the known languages. There is no connection to Greek. There's no connection to Italian. There's no connection to Slavic languages. It is just Albanian. That's it. And the Albanians themselves are a different type of people. Okay, who up to 70% are actually Muslims. Okay. Now there's another, the second biggest group of Albanians are Catholics, because of the connection to Italy and the Vatican, and the influence that I've had, of course. And then the third biggest group are Orthodox Christians, because of the connection to Greece and the Byzantine Empire before. So you have Albanians, basically, who majority actually go back to Ottoman Turkish Islamic roots. Okay, are Muslims, although many of them have lost the connection with Islam because of the very strict communism that happened actually during the time of communism, during the time when Albania, Kosovo was part of Yugoslavia, while Albania was a stern communist country. And then third, last but not least, the group of the Slavic people, who mostly are Bosniaks. Okay, Bosniaks, people living in Bosnia, people who speak the Bosnian language, which, as I said before, is the same like Serbian and Croatian, belongs to exactly the same category of languages. So Serbian, Croatian, and Bosnian. And these are Slavic people. The same like the Serbs are Slavic people, the same like the Croats are Slavic people, the Russians are Slavic people. So these people, okay, they all speak Slavic languages. Okay, and one of the biggest Slavic languages in former Yugoslavia, of course, was Serbo-Croatian, which was the official language of Yugoslavia. Nowadays, as I said, Serbian, Croatian, and Bosnian, basically the same root, the same language. What the Bosnians have, the Bosnian language nowadays, especially to distinguish themselves a bit more, to make a difference between themselves being Muslims, is because they do have a lot of Muslim terminology, of course, and Turkish, or going back to Turkish, Persian, and Arabic. Okay, so they use, of course, terms like salah, although they do use namaz, which is a Turkish word. They do use the prayer times, the namings of the prayer times, which again goes back to the Turkish words, and so on and so forth. So that's what basically is the difference between the Bosnian language and the Serbian and the Croatian language, which of course are non-Muslims learning. So, aren't they Turks? Lar is asking. You just see. Do I read your name correctly? Lor. Aren't they Turks? Says, who do you mean are the Turks? No, they aren't, as we just said. So you do have Turkish people and you do have Turkish speakers, but you also have Slavic people, such as the Bosnians, and you do have the Albanians, who are not Slavic people and speak a totally different language. So these are three big peoples. Next to this one, in Greece, for example, you also have another Slavic group. They're called Pomaks. Pomaks speak a dialect, a language which is very close to Bulgarian. Okay, it's a Bulgarian dialect, basically. the Pomak dialect. So these are Slavic people like the Bosnians, but they don't speak Bosnian. They speak Pomak. Okay, so they're not all Turks at all. Okay, next to this one, another group that we have in Greece, for example, as Muslims, are the Sinti and Roma, as they're called nowadays. So the Sinti and Roma, they have again their own languages, not only one, but they do have their own languages. They speak different type of Sinti Roma languages throughout the Balkans. Okay, that are closer to their home countries or the countries that they live in. Let's say the Sinti and Roma in Greece would have a lot of Greek terminology and vocabulary in their language, of course, such as the ones in the former Yugoslavia that will have a lot of Serbo-Croatian and so on and so forth. That's how you can imagine. So Yugoslavia is indeed a very, very, very interesting chapter in history, which there we see the importance of history, which we cannot explain. We cannot explain the issue of Yugoslavia if we don't look back into the history of the territory of that area, going even before Ottoman times. As I said, Islam, for example, spread even before, was there before Ottoman times. But the Ottomans strengthened, spread, and stabilized the Islamic presence and Islam as a deen throughout the Balkan Peninsula, all the way up to Vienna. Okay, now that's exciting, that's interesting, that's something very, very different. Okay, mashallah. The issue of nowadays, we're living in the 21st century. Out of one big country, Yugoslavia, there have become seven. With a seventh, as I said again, Kosovo is not recognized by everyone. But the majority of people actually in own countries have recognized Kosovo as the Republic of Kosovo, as an independent Kosovo, which has 96-97% Albanian Muslims. And this is massive. This is really massive. And this country is going to play a big role because a lot of things happened there. Wars happened there too, of course. And this is something that, going back to what was mentioned as keywords, sad keyword that we have to think of when we think of the Balkans and Yugoslavia. We think of wars, we think of ethnic divisions, we think of religious issues, we think of Muslim clash, Muslim versus Christians, Muslims versus Orthodox people, for example, Orthodox Christians, right? So all this unfortunately has negative connotation. Okay, unfortunately. But don't forget, I am going, inshallah, in May. I'm going to be in Kosovo, inshallah, in May, the first week of May. And I'm looking forward to that because Kosovo in itself, I just know through history, and I have driven. I've never stopped to actually look at it. That time it was part of Yugoslavia. I didn't even know that there was a Kosovo in Yugoslavia at that time. Let's see. Let me see. I have to put my glasses off. Didn't Yugoslavia allow the Slavs to unite and prevent foreign influences like the medieval Turks? Yugoslavia existed between 1918, so shortly after World War One. Okay, shortly after World War One, it was created, and then later it became the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, with the official language being Serbo-Croatian, as I mentioned, where the Serbs, the Croats, the Bosnians were together as the main Slavic people. It was actually a unity of Slavic people, indeed, if you mean that. So did Yugoslavia allow the Slavs to unite and to prevent foreign influences like the medieval Turks? Okay, now, again, Yugoslavia existed between 1918 and 1991, 1992. And there were no medieval Turks or medieval influences, okay? The medieval, as you say properly, and the Middle Ages, right? That the Turks, the Ottomans actually, which again, let's use the proper terminologies. The Ottomans went to the Balkans in the 14th century, okay, and stayed there until the beginning of the 20th century in many countries, okay, which developed out of the Ottoman Empire later. So yes, they wanted that they created the Yugoslavia. The idea was a unified and a united Slavic country, nation, okay, a nation of Slavs, okay, in order to get rid of the influences from before. But the main influence, indeed, that they got rid of was the Islamic Ottoman influence. However, nowadays, alhamdulillah, there are still enough countries that you can visit and experience the Ottoman Islamic influence from the past. No doubt about it, mashallah. Okay? But thank you for the question. It was a good question, mashallah. Okay? It was a good input, mashallah. Anything else that you would like to ask, to comment? Anything that, maybe is weird? Because some of you might be in your mid, I don't know, you might be teenagers still, you might be in your 20s, so that time when you were born, actually, Yugoslavia had broken up, didn't exist anymore. Okay? And you might have heard of Yugoslavia, but reading just in maybe the history classes, maybe you've read something, or maybe you heard because of the Bosnian War, Yugoslavia, but nothing else. So if there's something you would like to ask, I think it's extremely important. One lesson that I would like to take as Muslim, as a European Muslim, I would like to take several lessons out of the breakup of Yugoslavia, out of the development of 7 new countries. First of all, look how they could fool us for decades, thinking that there are no Muslims in the Balkans, no Muslims in Europe, but there we are. We have, not only do we have Muslim populations and Muslim peoples, but we also have, Muslim countries, Muslim nations nowadays that developed out of Yugoslavia. And we were not aware of that. I didn't know at that time. Even us driving through Yugoslavia at that time, I remember from Germany, we had to drive through Yugoslavia to go to Greece. And that, of course, is something that we were not aware of, Muslims living in that part of the world. Okay, not at all. And that is one lesson to take a lesson from, one idea that we can take with us, that, look, they were hiding the Muslim populations and Muslim culture and Muslim civilization in a country such as Yugoslavia, behind actually the Serbo-Croatian language, Serbo-Croatian culture, where Bosnia didn't play a role at all. At all. Okay, and this is a sad point, a sad part. Okay. Another lesson again, once you might be up, but look how fast you can fall. You might be an empire, a big nation. Yugoslavia was a big nation, okay? Was not necessarily very poor, okay? Not at all. But it did sign an agreement, a Gastarbeiter agreement at that time with Germany, okay? And they did send in the 60s several people from Yugoslavia over to work in German factories in Germany at that time. And many of them were Muslims and still are in Germany and are Muslims, originally from the area of Kosovo, or from Bosnia, or from North Macedonia. Switzerland, for example, has many more people who went to work that time as they did to go to Greece, but many of them went to Switzerland, some others went to Austria. So for that reason, again, the result of that was that nowadays in the Balkans and in former Yugoslavia, in these countries, you will find actually that rather middle-aged people, older people would rather speak as a second language German rather than English. Okay, German and Russian. These were the languages that were spoken at that time, especially because of the connections to Central Europe, German-speaking countries, and to Russia, of course, because of their communist background. English is something that people learn nowadays, for sure. Okay. Another question, mashallah. What are the short-term and long-term solutions for those countries? Well, excellent question, Daiki. First of all, some of these countries, like Slovenia, Croatia, have become part of the European Union. And this is massive and huge. This is huge. I mean, that they became part of the European Union is quite a big deal, I think. Okay. Accepting the euro, another thing again. Kosovo, without being part of the European Union, has its official currency being the euro, which is crazy because, of course, people do not earn the amounts that they earn in Germany or in Austria or in other parts where they are part of the European Union, but they have the euro as their currency, official currency, and have an influence on it. Kosovo doesn't. So that affects, of course, their finances and the financial issue, the economic issue of the country. So you have Kosovo having the euro. having Croatia and Slovenia being part of the European Union, and Serbia wants to join, cannot because of its past. There's a problem, a cultural difference again, being Orthodox Christians, having Muslims in the south, and of course the former the the main the Serbs being the main people ruling Yugoslavia, basically, and nowadays claiming being having a Serbian heritage as well. They can be found throughout the Balkans and Yugoslavia. Long term, of course, I believe that there have been talks about integrating Bosnia and Kosovo as well, and North Macedonia, for them to become part of the European Union. Now, as you can see, since Brexit, I think talks within the European Union have dried out. I mean, the European Union itself, the EU, you see not a lot being written about the European Union, not a lot of articles that mention the European Union, not a lot happening within the EU countries now. So I don't know how popular the issue is for these countries to join the European Union. Turkey, for example, which was very keen just 10 years ago, that's not the issue. It's seemingly not an issue anymore. So in the long term, I don't believe that these countries will join the European Union. I don't even think that the EU has any interest in getting these countries to join them. Okay, I don't think that. I even think that the EU will disintegrate. That's what I believe. Okay, these countries have to find their way, like all the other nations, even if they are small nations. I mean, the Serbia, for example, which is has the largest population, is barely 7 million people. That's not really a big nation, of course. Not many people. 7 million people. That's all it is. So every other nation is less than 2 million. I mean, 2 million around, 3 million, I think, in Bosnia. So it's not really that many people. And these nations that have developed are not on the level of Central Europe or even Southern European countries such as Italy, Greece, or Spain, and so on. So they are not on that level at all. So there is a lot that needs to be done, of course. There is a lot that has to be done for stability. First of all, the political stability, for example, Kosovo needs to be politically stable in order for it to become also economically stable. Okay, the one will bring the other. And this is what's going on. Okay. Audio isn't that good, I'm told, Adnan. I'm sorry about that. You hear an echo. I don't know. Was it the whole time like this? First time I. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I do not hear an echo. So trying our best from our side, inshallah. Anyway, I think main points are we have to realize that in the Balkans, the breakup of Yugoslavia gave us the newcomers to Europe, newcomers to the cultural difference in Europe, such as we have Muslims now, we have Turkish speakers, we have Slavic speakers, we have Albanian speakers, people who play a role and will play a role within the framework of Europe and Islam in Europe. And that will be quite important for us in case it ever happens that Bosnia or Albania join the European Union. That is going to be a massive development, of course, for Islam in Europe. But even more so when Turkey, in case Turkey joins the European Union, then we have a massive country of nearly 100 million people who are mainly Muslims. Okay, so directly there we have, of course, the issue of having a massive Muslim country, economically much stronger, much more stable than most of these Balkan countries. So that will play, of course, a much bigger role. But yeah, I think we've come to a good point to draw a line here now and understand and see again how the importance of history is reflected nowadays in the modern times, and how The economy would play a role with historical development and the development nowadays, of course, and that not only with Yugoslavia, but Yugoslavia and the breakup of Yugoslavia, I think is a good example, was a good example just to see how things change, from one day to the next. Okay, how a nation can be out there and can fall easily and quickly. Okay, how a nation has to look into their political stability, into the economic stability of the one, has to lead to the other. So all these elements, I think it's former Yugoslavia, the territory of former Yugoslavia, is actually a macrocosm of what's going on in the world. Okay, or rather a microcosm of what's going on in the world. Okay, entirely. So, subhanallah, I really would like to thank you for coming and joining me here today, Friday, 7 p.m. Don't forget, that's when we have our English live. Anybody can come and ask questions, and I do appreciate the ones who asked the questions today. Jazakumullah khair. Don't forget, we offer the Mukaddimah program. It's still on. In October, we're starting the university. Come and take a look at it. All these things we discussed today, we discussed that too, and more in depth. Take a look at almukaddimah.com. Find out what we offer. Take a look at the university program from October on. Jazakumullah khair. I hope to see you next week, Friday, inshallah, again, to the English session. Otherwise, whoever speaks German, come and join us on Sunday. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.